USC is winless on the road this year. Washington undefeated at home. USC needs to unburden themselves.
You are Locked On Trojans, your daily podcast on the USC Trojans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Fight on, everyone. I'm your host, Mark Colkin, and thanks for making Locked On USC, part of the Locked On Network, your first listen every day. Whether you're watching the show on YouTube, wherever you're going to download your podcast, this show is going to remain free, and this show is always going to appreciate your support. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers, you can place a $5 bet, and you're going to get started with $150 in bonus bets, guaranteed if your first $5 bet wins. Bet $5, win, you get $150. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. So USC have not won away from the Coliseum this year. Technically, they have not won a true road game. They did beat LSU in Las Vegas. So you can say, all right, loophole, USC has one on the road. It's a neutral site game. Nevertheless, true road game in another team's stadium. USC has been, they've been burdened. They can't shake that weight around their neck. Winless on the road. USC, they've had a chance to win games at Michigan, Minnesota, Maryland. They had leads in the fourth quarter of all of those games. Late in the game, too. Yet here we are, game number 9 of the season. Both teams, USC 4-4, Washington 4-4. Why is USC a 3-point favorite on the road at one of the toughest places to play in the country, let alone the conference? What am I missing here? Why are places like FanDuel, the guys who set the lines in Vegas, why do they see USC as the favorite? I mean, typically the home team gets 3 points automatically, just because they're the home team. That's the betting standard. The standard is the standard. That's the motto USC likes to use. So I just thought I would apply it here. I just checked right now on FanDuel. USC is a 2.5-point favorite on the road. So if this game was actually being played in LA at the Coliseum, I can safely assume that USC is probably closer to a touchdown favorite, right? 5-6 points. The problem is USC has challenges closing out games. And this matchup, when you look at it, it points to it being a very low scoring, probably a field goal at the end to win it type of game. We'll see. I mean, the folks in Vegas are usually on point with these types of things. They're always like, you look up the score and you're like, how do these guys know this is going to happen? They just know. They just know. The other day, I pointed out how good Washington's pass defense is. The Huskies have the number 1 rated pass defense in the country. And I mean, when you look at the numbers that their opponents have put up against the pass defense, you literally will think, all right, Washington's undefeated. They're heading back to the playoffs for the second year in a row. But they're not. They have 4 losses. And I think you have to take into consideration those statistical numbers and who they played, because that plays a role in this. I mean, Washington hosted Eastern Michigan and Weber State at home. Throttled. They should. Then they hosted Michigan. They played Northwestern, Iowa, and even when they played at Indiana last week, the Hoosiers were missing their starting quarterback. But they still won easily. In that game, I think it was 31-17 in favor of Indiana. One of their defensive linemen had a pick 6, so that contributed to the score. So you take that score off, it was 24 points for Indiana's offense against Washington's defense. Still, 31-17 was the final score. So be that as it may, the Huskies defense, it's good. Their pass defense is good. They've only given up 985 total yards through 8 games. It's an amazing number. 6 touchdowns. That's all. They have 5 interceptions. Um, the most impressive part, I don't care who you're playing, when you're averaging just giving up 123 yards per game, and that's 5 yards per pass attempt, that's good. Now, we're going to find out how good they are. This game is being played in Seattle, and I know Indiana is having a season for the ages. I'm bringing up Indiana because USC and the Hoosiers passing game, statistically, very similar. USC is a little bit better. Um, Again, Indiana was without Curtis Rourke last week. Their starting quarterback. I don't think the Huskies have faced an offense with a starting quarterback as good as Miller Moss. Not yet. I gave you the other teams they played so far. So Indiana would be the closest, but again, when Washington played against them, the Hoosiers were missing their starting quarterback. So I'm hoping that the team that showed up against Rutgers, because Rutgers and Washington are similar type of programs. If the USC team that shows up against Rutgers shows up in Seattle, despite the perceived passing struggles for USC, it's still a top 20 passing offense in the country. In fact, they're number 16. So here's what you need to know. Miller completes 65% of his passes. He's averaging 291 yards per game. He's got 16 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and he's averaging 7 yards per completion. The Huskies give up 5 yards, just slightly under 5 yards. Something's got to give. So is this game going to come down to which defense forces more field goals? One thing that'll help USC win on the road is if they can get some of their players back on their defensive side of the ball, specifically in the secondary. Jacoby Covington, Jalen Smith, are they going to be healthy enough to play? Remember, Jacoby actually started his career as a Husky. And I don't believe he played in the game last year when USC hosted them at the Coliseum. This year, Washington's offense, they're not that scoring machine that we watched them play as last year when they had Michael Penix at quarterback and Roman Dunze at wide receiver. They were really a proficient, big play capability team on offense with their wide receivers and with Michael Penix. Not this year. Not even close to what they're doing last year. They still put up a lot of yards, but the points aren't there right now. They have their quarterback transfer from Mississippi State, Will Rogers. He completes 70% of his passes, but they're all dink and dunk type of things. So they put up a lot of yards, just not the points. That's something that Coach Riley would call an empty stat. And just so you kind of get an idea of what Washington's offense has done point production-wise, they haven't hit the 20-point mark in 4 of their last 6 games. And each one of those games, they lost. Here's another interesting statistic. Considering Washington's pass defense, this is really ironic to me. USC has the number 1 defense in the Big Ten when it comes to stopping third downs. USC only gives up 30% conversion rate defensively when they're trying to force the other team, when the other team is trying to convert on a third down. USC gets hurt on fourth down. They give it up 56% of the time, which is still a little bit better than Washington. Their defense gives it up 57% of the time. So we'll see what happens. I think that third down conversion, that might play right into USC's hands. I think that's where they have the advantage. Because USC, they're only allowing teams to convert 30% of the time. Washington, they're a little bit above that average. They convert 37% of the time on third down. So if you're looking at Washington on offense, who does USC have to focus on? There's 3 names. You've got Will Rogers, the quarterback. He's much better at home. 10 touchdowns, 1 interception. The running back. Remember this guy's name, Jonah Coleman. You probably remember him if you watched the USC Arizona game last year. USC held on to win that one in what, double overtime, triple overtime, whatever it was. 22 carries, 143 yards. That was with Alex Grinch's scheme playing defense. USC isn't using Alex Grinch anymore. He's nowhere close to the locker room, and you have a lot of different players playing defense this year. Keep an eye on wide receiver Denzel Boston. Dude's really capable of putting up big numbers. And I don't have the name in front of me. I apologize. Washington likes to run a second quarterback out there. He's one of those athletic guys who can use his legs. So they use him on occasion, certain packages. Like a lot of USC fans would like to see Jaden Mayabi used. Anyways, that's another story for another day. But those are the guys to keep an eye on. Denzel Boston, he could put up big numbers at wide receiver. He doesn't scare you, kind of like a Roman Dunze does, but he can catch the ball. He can do things. And again, you've got Jonah Coleman, the running back. USC will win this game if the offensive line handles the noise factor. Husky Stadium gets really loud, really loud. Also, do not let Coleman have a repeat performance of what he did last year at the Coliseum. Hold him to less than 100 yards. Make Washington have to beat you through the air. I don't think Will Rogers has that in him. Now, obviously, you want USC to be healthy in their secondary. That'll help. Just don't make Will Rogers a Heisman candidate. Don't let that happen. USC has one more chance to win on the road when they play UCLA at the Rose Bowl. But this is really their true last road game. They need to unburden themselves by what they've been burdened by. I know I shouldn't be going there, but whatever. If you know who said it, you know who said it. But USC's biggest challenge has been themselves winning on the road. They have a chance to actually do this. I don't consider playing at the Rose Bowl a road game. This is USC's last chance to get it done in 2024. Will they do it? The people who set the betting line think that USC should. What do you think? Hit me up. If you're watching on YouTube, hit me up in the comments section. Hit me up on X. Let me know what you think. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Right now, new customers, you can get, if you bet $5, you're going to get $150 in bonus bets if you win. Just bet $5 and win. Make it an easy bet. The FanDuel Sportsbook gives you everything you need to do in one place. You can place your live bets on the NFL. It's all in one place. And if you have a hunch in the middle of the game and you want to check out the latest stats, view some live play-by-play, pull out your phone, you can do that. All of it at FanDuel now. It's not just where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You're going to get started with $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Elijah Page, Emmanuel Prignon, Jonah Monheim, Alani Noah, Mason Murphy. All right? That is your starting offensive line. It's been that way all year. These guys have been everybody's favorite punching bag since game 3 up at Michigan. USC's offensive line looked great against LSU. They looked fantastic at home in game 2 against Utah State. And then all of a sudden, things kind of unraveled a little bit. Inconsistency took over. But I'll tell you what, the last few games, the offensive line, they're getting better. They're developing. Look, in the past, I talked about how they needed to learn how to count to 3 Mississippis. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi. That's the minimum. That's the minimum amount of pass protection I think your quarterback deserves. 3 seconds. They were giving Miller Moss 1 to 2 seconds. It's not enough. It's one reason why before last week the Trojans didn't have an explosive pass play, because they weren't allowing the wide receivers to, one, get separation, two, allow the plays to develop. And if Miller Moss has to take his eyes off the deep throw downfield and come upfield sooner, again, all of this plays into how things play out on the field. Whether it's the offensive line doing their job, running backs, tight ends missing their job in pass protection, whatever the case may be. USC did not have an explosive pass play until last week when Mekhi Lemon just kind of said, "I'm here, watch this." So the offensive line wasn't doing their job. You also can point your finger at Miller Moss with some of his accuracy issues. You had drop passes, pass interference calls, some that weren't called. However, lately, I think the O-line's been pretty good, which means, again, they're developing. I know they're getting better because I'm noticing them less and less throughout the game. I'm not saying, hey, did you see what that guy did? Did you see the penalty on so-and-so? The fewer times you hear an offensive lineman's name called during the game, the better. That's exactly how they want to be recognized. Other than, did you just see Mason Murphy pancake that dude? Did you just see Jonah Monheim knock the snot out of the guy who was trying to rush right up on him? Did you see Elijah Page get to the second level? Those are the types of things you want to hear when you're talking about your offensive line. And those are the things that they're starting to do. After practice the other day, Jonah Monheim, your starting center, said he said he's not calling it their best performance of the year, how they performed against Rutgers, but the way they handled Rutgers, he said it was definitely one of their best. I think if he wants to say which one they played their best in, he would probably say LSU. He also mentioned that the reason why they're getting better, it's a result of learning from their experiences. Whether they've been good or bad, that's how they're developing. They can think back to, all right, you know what? I remember that one. It's not going to happen again. I remember doing it this way, and it was really successful, so let's continue to do that. They're learning from experience. The other thing is that where they're getting better is they're more on point with their communication process. So one of the experiences they can draw onto, they're going up to Seattle this weekend. Husky Stadium's really loud. They can say, all right, well, we've already played at Michigan, Minnesota. There was a pretty loud crowd in Las Vegas against LSU. Maryland, But the guys can say, oh, you know what? We've been in these types of tough environments before. Now we know what it's all about. We know how to adjust, how to communicate. And when it comes to the offensive line, especially when you've got younger guys playing, it's all about confidence. Gaining that confidence as the season goes along. Elijah Page, Olani Noah, second-year players. Elijah's a redshirt freshman. Olani's a true sophomore. But they're not young anymore. I mean, age-wise, yes, they are. But game experience-wise, not anymore. Not in my opinion. Now they're veterans. And they still got, 4 more regular season games to play. And hopefully the bowl game. So as young as USC's offensive line is this year, you got 2 guys who are young. It's actually going to be younger next year when it comes to experience. You're going to have Elijah Page at left tackle. He'll be in his 3rd year in the program. I'm assuming Amos Talalele is going to take over at left guard. If not him, Micah Banuelos. I think Killian O'Connor is going to be on track to be your starting center. He's a senior. He will be a senior next year. Alani Noah at right guard, junior. And then what happens at right tackle? Mason Murphy, is he able to hold off Tobias Raymond? So you're going to have a redshirt senior at right tackle, or you're going to have a redshirt sophomore at right tackle. One of the two. But here's what you can say. All right, you know what? You watch these guys take their bumps and bruises, learn along the way, have some good games, have some not so good games. But we're starting to see the 2023 offensive line class. It's starting to pay dividends. It's why Coach Riley can avoid having to use the transfer portal going forward when it comes to the offensive line. And that was always the goal. You want to be able to develop your own guys. And if you're going to the portal, it's because you need one key component. You're not looking for the guy to be the end-all solution. I don't want USC going to the transfer portal for an offensive lineman unless you're bringing in someone like an Emmanuel Prillon, a multi-year transfer. In other words, don't do it. If you're not going to get the guy for 2 years, maybe 3 years, just don't do it. Don't wreck the chemistry and screw up the guys, retard their development. If you're going to recruit 10 offensive linemen in 2 years, let's get those guys ready to go. So Josh Henson doesn't get a lot of love for his player evaluation and recruiting. Well, guess what? Looks like he might be pretty good at it. Remember, Elijah Page, he was one of the top prospects in the country when he was being recruited. USC was able to get him to sign on the dotted line. And now all of a sudden he's developing into a really solid left tackle in the second year. And as I mentioned, he still has at least 4 or 5 more games this season. Alani Noah, last year, he dealt with losing both of his parents. Okay. That was his first year away from home. That's a lot to ask for an adult. Right? Let alone a teenager on the road, living away from home for the first time. All of a sudden, both parents, they're gone. It's a lot to ask. That's what he was dealing with as a true freshman. As you say, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Olani's getting better this year. He's starting to turn into that road grader force you want at right guard. He's coming into his own. I mean, he's going to own that right guard spot next year as a junior. His confidence level through the roof. And then you got all those young guys that you recruited in 2023 and 2024. I mean, they're all red shirts. So I mentioned Killian O'Connor already. Don't forget, you got Hayden Trader, 6'6", 325-pound freshman. Emmanuel Prillon, he'll be moving on in the NFL. Elijah Page, I already talked about. Tobias Raymond, he's a redshirt freshman, 6'7", 315 pounds. Justin Tauanu, true freshman, 6'6", 310 pounds. Amos Talalele, redshirt freshman, 6'4", 340. Mason Murphy, already talked about him. Alani Noah, talked about him. Don't forget Makai Sena, 6'3", 270. Guard, center, we're going to find out. USC has a lot of good, big youth guys in that offensive line room. So suddenly, all the dividends, all the investments are going to start paying off. And assuming Mason Murphy returns next year, redshirt senior at right tackle. As I said, Killian at center as a true senior. And then you've got all those second and third year players. All of a sudden, the formula's starting to come together. You can see what's cooking. This will be their latest test. If USC's offensive line does their job on the road in Seattle, there's really nothing left to phase them for the rest of the year. You get to come home with a bye week. You're going to host Nebraska. Then you're going to go play in your second home, the Rose Bowl against UCLA. Then you get to come home, finish up the season against Notre Dame, rip their heart out. These last 4 games are the final exam. It's not about a letter grade for the offensive line. It's pass or no pass, literally. Pass protect, and the passing game will just continue to take off. The wide receivers will get the job done. In the run game, it'll just continue to pick up the yards. So if the offensive line does their job on the road this week, yeah, USC will cover that line. They'll win. I think defensively they have enough. We'll find out together. Our friends over at 5 Hour Energy, they know that being a passionate football fan isn't just a hobby, it's a way of life. It takes a lot of energy to power through those all-day tailgates, touchdown celebrations. Sometimes the games go to overtime, which is why they've created Stay in the Fan 5 Hour Energy Shot with a special flavor called Fan Fuel. The energy shot made just for super fans, just like you, me, anybody who likes to do it all day long. The fans who are the first in the parking lot and who are the last to leave. I mean, I see you. I know you. That's me. It's who I used to be. You know what else gave me a bit of a USC fan fuel this past week? Watching Mekhi Lemon just kind of go ham all over Rutgers. I mean, talk about an energy boost. 80-yard kickoff return, 70-yard pass. He was doing it all. 5 Hour Energy knows that no matter what team you root for, being a fan requires heart, soul, and a whole lot of energy. Whether you're repping for a big tailgate, ironing your favorite jersey, your game day to-do list is always a mile long. That's why the limited edition Stay in the Fan 5 Hour Energy Shot is here to keep you fueled through the season. Damn that fly. What's your fan fuel this week? Whatever it is, do it with a 5 Hour Energy. Available on 5hourenergy.com, and it's shipped nationwide. Fly got in the house, and it's pissing me off. All right. I will never forget my 8th grade science teacher, Mr. Genrich. He used to say, you get what you earn, and you earn what you get. Is it redundant? Yes, but it makes sense in a Yogi Berra type of way. It literally means that in life, your outcomes, your rewards, they're directly tied to the effort, the work you put in. And you're only going to get what you put in. USC needs to put in more if they want to get more back at the end of the season. Especially if they want to play in better postseason games. And that's what I'm talking about here. Bowl game projections are starting to come out. And USC still needs to win 2 more games to even to be bowl eligible. Don't forget, you got to win 6. Will they? You look at their last 4 games, people say, maybe not. Well, here's what's going on right now. The reason why USC needs to play in a bowl game, it's important. You get 15 more team practices, and these guys need it. The younger players, they kind of get their turn to show out, point to 2025, saying, hey, coaches, I'm going to be the dude next year. And when the bowl games roll around, you have the older guys who opt out, getting ready for the draft, whatever. Some are considering the transfer portal. So here are some of the bowl game projections. Some of the national outlets, they're thinking this is where USC is going to play at the end of the year. You agree? Do you disagree? Sports Illustrated, they've got USC in the Alamo Bowl. That's December 28th. They got them going up against Kansas State. All right. Well, USC has never played in the Alamo Bowl, but they are 0-2 against Kansas State. I wasn't at the game in Manhattan, Kansas, but I was at the one in LA the year before. USC needs to get a win on the board if they're going to play Kansas State. CBS Sports, they got USC. They don't even have to leave home. They're playing in the LA Bowl, SoFi Stadium, against UNLV. Yeah, that would be a major letdown. Major letdown. And I just don't know if USC is going to get up to play UNLV. That would say that's one of those games where UNLV can say, hey, we beat USC in a game that USC just doesn't care about. What about the Action Network? Well, they got USC in the Sun Bowl. That's December 31st, El Paso, Texas. Yuck. They're playing Virginia Tech. Double yuck. USC is 0-3 all time in the Sun Bowl. They have beat Virginia Tech before. That was with Reggie Bush was with the team. we'll see what happens. I really would not want to spend my New Year's in El Paso. Sure, it's a great place. It just doesn't give me that ooh, can't wait to get to El Paso feeling. ESPN, they got a couple of predictions. One is the Sun Bowl. Mark Schlabach says USC is going to play Duke. Kyle Bonagura, he says that USC is playing in the LA Bowl against UNLV. All right. Ugh. Again, these bowl game projections, they're not giving me goosebumps. USA Today, yeah. They don't even have USC going to a bowl game. Meaning they think USC is going to lose at least three of their next games. Crazy, huh? Do you agree with that? I think USC is going to get at least 7 wins. I'm hoping, I'm praying they win their final 4, go to 8-4. Then we'll see what bowl game they end up in. Let's get through Washington first. Let's get to 5-4. And that way USC comes home. They don't get on an airplane again for the rest of the year. I'll be back with another episode of Locked on USC tomorrow. I'll give you my final score prediction. I'll have a Friday rant. And we'll see what else is down the pipe. So until then, everyone, you know what to do.